Hey, welcome back to Diggs on Twitch. Back today with match 6, I believe, of Pre-Innistrad Legacy, playing against Callum Whitefaces on BANT Blade, which looks like a pretty cool deck. This is it here, pretty much like a BANT Maverick deck with a little bit more to it. So we're looking at cards like Jace the Mind Sculptor. This deck also has Counter Magic, Enforcer Will, and Daze, which is pretty interesting. It also has a Stoneforged Mystic package, so that's going to be pretty tough to fight against. We do have Qasali Primage and Swords to Plowshares, which is nice. But out of the board, my opponent also has some pretty nice cards like Elspeth, more equipment in Riki Gusari, which is great against other Stoneforged Mystic decks. Sort of Fire Knights, which is still okay. Bojuka Bog and Tormod's Crypt is something to look out for as well, for opposing Knights to find to make ours smaller. So this will be an interesting matchup. Looking forward to it, to say the least. This hand is okay. The only issue is that we have the Dried Arbor in hand, which I really want to accelerate to here. We have a play like turn 1 Mum, and then turn 2 Dried Arbor, which isn't great. The Dried Arbor here is really making this a little bit worse because the Sylvan Library is pretty huge. Although it has a turn 1 Mum, it does suffer in the early game just due to its mana, so I am going to mulligan this. And hopefully find a similar hand. This is pretty rough as well because it is a hand without acceleration, but I think I'm not going to go to 5, so I'll keep this in bottomless sword. This means we can go Windswept Heath Pass, which means we can hold up Swords to Plowshares off of Plains and then go for a basic off the Verdant Catacombs. So I don't have to worry about my opponent having a card like Aven Mind Sensor, I believe. So I am just going to pass here. I want to keep my sword for their first creature, or at least threat, so Sylvan Library is actually a fantastic draw. Let's go for Plains and Forest. My opponent also doesn't have an island down, so they can't daze this, which is pretty nice. A Brainstorm's fine. That most likely means my opponent has a fetch land, or maybe even just land into Stoneforged Mystic for a shuffle, which is where I really wanted to have a mana accelerant, because even if I drew the Sylvan Library, I think I'd be happy to hold up the Aven Mind Sensor, just because of how brutal a Stoneforged Mystic in this matchup can be. Jide is a card that can really take over the game, so having access to the swords is nice, and also just making sure I have this Knight as a pretty big card early on is pretty good. So creature base for Callum is 1 Dried Arbor, 3 Noble Hierarch, 1 Qasali Primage, 1 Scavenging Ooze. Oh, they're going straight for the Jit. Interesting. Wasteland's pretty nice because I can hit their mana here pretty hard. Double Wasteland's actually really nice, so I think here I want to pay in some way. I think I am just going to pay 8 here. It's a little bit tough because obviously they can have some pretty big creatures coming through, like Goy for Click in the Air. But I think just while I can, I want to make as much advantage of this as I can. So I could either keep the swords for when they equip the Jide, but I feel like I want to just Wasteland and Swords my opponent now to take them off as much mana as possible. So I am going to Swords first and see how they respond. They let that slide, so now we're in a really good position. I'm also going to take them off green, because I don't really care if they want to Ponder or Brainstorm. I really want to keep them off another creature. Buying cards there as well allows me to dig for something like Qasali Primage to actually answer the Jide as well, which is nice. So although I am leaning pretty hard on a mana denial strategy right now, I do have Qasali Pridemage as a pretty nice out to the Jide if things do go a little bit loopy. I think the best draw there would have actually just been a Noble Hierarch or a Green Suns that I could use the Forest with. But Wasteland looking really good here, and you know, obviously with Astrolabe in the format right now, Wasteland isn't in a great spot, so that's where Pre-Innistrad just really gets me to grind my gears on Wasteland and get that feeling back of power. Interesting, so just a fetch for my opponent, but no fetch, so we'll see if we actually get to play a land or not. There's Qasali, so that's exactly what I want for the These are actually all pretty nice. I'm going to put these on top. And then just play Canopy Pass. Holding up Aven Mind Sensor. They could have Daze. Which is interesting. There's some thought that maybe I don't go for... Aven here, and I go for Qasali Pridemage. But if they want to daze the Aven, I'm probably okay with that. It puts them back a land. I guess what they could have is fetch for Dried Arbor, and then swing in with Jide. So I might actually just go with Pridemage here. That's pretty nice. Because now if they want to deal with the Pridemage, I get to kind of 2-for-1 them by taking out the Jide. I'm going to assume this is another Reliquary. Okay. I think I want to pivot towards Scavenging Ooze with my Green Sun Zenith. Nice. Now I have mana up for Skoos and Qasali Pridemage, which is kind of nice. And I also get a shuffle off the Sylvan Library, so hopefully I can find an answer for the Knight that isn't just Scavenging Ooze. But maybe this comes back to me just not being more aggressive with my second Wasteland. Swords and Ooze is okay. They're going to use the Knight, which is interesting. Probably finding a Wasteland of their own. And then it's going to be interesting if they take out the Canopy or the Wasteland. Interesting, just holding it up. Ah, so they could be holding up Vendilion Click as well. I guess I'm pretty happy not to use Qasali here, just untap and see what we draw into. And there's a sword, so that's pretty nice. Put on top. Put on top. And here's that click. I'm definitely going to use the Swords to Plowshares on the knight. I'm going to force that. Okay. Now I'm just going to hold back and allow them to draw if they want. Knight, okay. I could have played the noble first, which is probably incorrect, because then I could attack for 4, which means the click couldn't trade with the jit. I think you're right. I unfortunately just hold up the mind sensor. My opponent has 1 card in hand. I am just going to play this now. They know about it, so it's obviously less great with Flash, and it just means that if they play a fetch land, then they can play around the Aven at instant speed, but here at least I grab a fetch as well if I really need it. Qasali doing a lot of work here. But my opponent does also have lethal on the field, so I do have to block at least one of these creatures. Looking at the sideboard, I think Linval is going to be pretty great in this matchup. It stops Noble Hierarch, Qasali Prime Mage, Scavenging Ooze, Stoneforge Mystic, Knight. So a fair amount of things. Interesting spot. The click's really nice because although I could find an out in Caracas, it does pressure me in the air, which is pretty tough because Aven's really my only flyer here. It's going to see attack with both. So I think here we have to block. And then before damage we can sack and hit the jit. My opponent has 1 card left. And they just pass. Interesting. Mum's pretty nice if I can buy some time. I probably want to take my opponent off white here to stop them from having Swords to Plowshares. It does make the knight bigger, but I think that's okay. Here I can hopefully block the knight with the noble and then untap with a mum. Interesting. Holding up the knight. Allowing me to untap with the noble. I am going to draw a card here. I do want to dig for another Swords to Plowshares. Could see my opponent fire for this Wasteland. Yeah. Oh, Script Ranger is actually a really nice pickup here. Script Ranger would be huge because it's a great blocker for click and also gives me double activation of Mum. Caracas is going to be fine. Dried Arbor. Alright. So we get one chance here. I will just fetch for another basic. Probably a forest. Because it means that my opponent can't wasteland me if they want to. What do we find? Nice! Ooh, that's pretty good as well, but of course we can't. So let's go put on top. Put on top. I am just going to cast this now. They only have one card in hand, so I'm not too sure what they could have. I think this might lock up the game pretty well. Because the Script Ranger answers the click. And I'm not too sure if my opponent can have an out here with the double mums as well. Looks like they're going to try to draw a card. Crackus click. That's okay. Oh, they want to force it. Interesting. That's pretty cool. I like that play a lot. But we do still have the green suns, which is nice. But they'll have to click us. They can't currently click without a land because they need double blue. And Knight can only find one source. So luckily we have the green suns to find the second Script Ranger. Main deck they have sort of Feast and Famine, which doesn't do anything except with click. I think maybe Callum there wanted to sack the Dried Arbor to get Cradle, but they actually don't play Cradle, so they couldn't create 3 mana there, which is nice for us. Cradle. So the question here is, do we want to go for Script Ranger? Do we want to go for Qasali Pride Mage? I think I just want to go for Script Ranger here. Because the sword's going to take a while to turn on. Scavenging Ooze I don't think does enough. But it's interesting to say the least. Because Scavenging Ooze can obviously make the Knight a lot weaker, and there's currently maybe just one creature in the bins that actually kind of takes me off it. I guess there's 2 creatures making it a 4/4, but I think just Script Ranger here is so good with the double mums. And I'm sure we can find a way to get through the sword, especially with 2 more Qasali Pride Mage in the deck. Well, there's a blue mana. Tundra, Tundra, Trop. They have 3 of each, so they definitely have enough here. But it's definitely getting low as well. They're just getting a forest. Interesting. And hard casting, oh, their own Green Suns. For 2. Scavenging Ooze. That's going to be okay. Doesn't really affect the board, which is nice. Wasteland's pretty good. Sword of Fire and Ice. Wow, okay. I don't mind the sword here. Tap. Untap this, return this. Play this. Equip sword. My opponent can make green mana, so I can't really shoot the Scavenging Ooze. But I can shoot the Stoneforge Mystic. Could also just go at them, to be fair. Put them down to 8. And then I think I have a Noble Hierarch on top. But they do have the Scoos to gain some life. But I think this is actually better. I don't believe they're running Maze of Ith in the main deck, which is kind of nice for us. Sacking the Dryad Up is interesting because it gives them an extra creature as well for the Scavenging Ooze. So it might just be Trop here and gain a life by eating one of my creatures, like Qasali Pridemage. Yeah. Opponents with 2 cards, and we know one of them is Vendilion Click. We know the other is the Sword of Fire, Sword of Feast and Famine. Karakas is really nice. Put on top, put on top. Move to attacks. Play Scoos. There's some thought to playing the Karakas first in case my opponent clicked me, then I wouldn't be able to put the Karakas into play. They also got a white spell, a non-green land, which is interesting. So now they only have the forest for the Scoos here, which means I can go at least up to 3, which is nice. I might even fight over something right now, so we'll go for the Dryad Arbor. They're going to try to eat, so let's go with untap Noble, return this forest. Sylvan Library MVP here. As good as the mums are, it's been Sylvan Library that's kept me into this game just by extending my hand. There's first plow, so let's skip pro white. Let's eat that same dried arbor. This also means I can't put in the sword this turn, which is pretty huge. And thankfully the lock gets there. So Cal a little bit unfortunate with obviously finding a really nice knight, but then even the Force of Will hurt because going down on 2 cards is pretty big in this matchup, especially when I have Sylvan Library. So this is going to be interesting. I don't think I want the Gaddock Teeg. They do have Jace, but I think just Teeg turning off my own Green Suns is pretty poor. I really like the Script Ranger here against the Vendilion clicks. It's not going to be a big cut. I think if anything, it's just going to be something like these 4 that I really like. Stoneforge Mystic package is invaluable. The second Scoos, maybe it's the second Ranger that I don't want. Although Ranger is just so good, especially with Mother of Runes, that I think it's pretty nice. Maybe Linvala isn't. It's tough because if I did think of a matchup, it's this matchup where I thought Linvala was there. But looking at my sideboard structure and my main deck, there's not many cards that I don't actually like to board out. I think Knights are fantastic. Avon's great against both the Knight and Stoneforge Mystic package. The second Sylvan Library is definitely a card that I want. This is an interesting one. If you're watching this on YouTube, let me know in chat how you would board. I don't think the chokes are worth it, just because of how Knight and Noble Hierarch allow them to kind of get around it, and they also have a lot of answers to it. It could strangely be, it's either a trim on a Stoneforge, but I think finding Jide is just so good in this matchup that I need the third one, or trimming a Pride Mage, and then using the second library to find my Pride Mages. That just might be it, because I also am bringing in removal, which is kind of nice. See how this goes. A lot of nice cards, but... This is a slower hand that I'm not the biggest fan of. It doesn't play around Wasteland too well. This is much better. I'll keep this. I'm going to bottom the Knight because I have the Green Sun Zeniths. Let's go for Plains into Mother of Runes. This deck can definitely play around Wasteland a lot better than Cal's deck can, which is nice. So I do have a small advantage there as well. It's going to be Knight. Okay. Second Mum and then Green Suns for Dried Arbor I think is fine. Out of Cal's deck, I'm going to be assuming the Crows and Grip, this Elspeth. There's definitely a few good cards here. Elspeth pretty key at getting over my my board. Double Mum just so good. I mean, no Fatal Pushes, no Plague Engineers. It's a really nice time to be a Mum player. Cradle would be kind of cool here. Another Green Suns. Well, click is going to be okay. What do you want to take? I think here I do want to go for a Birds of Paradise. In case my opponent has natural Jide, I do want to have a blocker in the air that Mum can protect. So a bit like game one, definitely on the defensive, but feeling pretty good about our current board. The double Mum is really nice. No Blast Zone here as well for my opponent, which is good. It's always nice to know that there are some cards you don't have to worry about, especially with open deck lists. That's a huge part of why this tournament's really nice as well. But I feel like if I can maybe go... If we draw a land, there is a thought for going for Knight. But I don't mind going for Scrib Ranger again, and then going for Knight the following turn. I can maybe put my opponent in a position where we can attack their mana base and not really care about the Knight because of the double up on Mum. They actually aren't playing Mother of Runes themselves. That's a huge difference between the two decks, is that Mum's pretty tough to beat, especially by itself, but now to have, you know, the extra one, it's pretty nice for us. Just really trying to grow this Knight and get it big. Screws, okay. Opponent tapped out. Our own Knight, okay. I think here I like just Green Suns for Scrib Ranger, because then I can play my own Ooze as well. Unless they still have Days. Scrib Ranger, untap Bird, return Forest, play Forest. Play Ooze. Nice. Caracas is going to be okay. They're going to return the click now. That's interesting. And then obviously you're going to try to take one of these cards, but thankfully we have a pretty good setup. The Batterskull's a little bit dead here. I guess drawing into Stoneforge Mystic here would be brutal if they do take a card. So maybe they just see that this hand doesn't really change anything on the board and just leave it. I have the targets that I want from Green Suns out. The Knight is still pretty big. Sylvan Library here, a fantastic draw. Kind of have a free attack here if I want, which I am going to go for. Gonna eat Dried Arbor and see what my opponent does. Allows it, okay. I've already played a land for turn, so I don't think I will use Scrib Ranger here. I'll just allow them to untap because I want to have this ability in my opponent's turn. But Mum in both these games has been really impressive. Main phase click. Maybe targeting themselves. Yeah, okay. Tarmogoyf, yeah. Tarmogoyf, an interesting creature because you do see it in some of the earlier Maverick lists. But a lot of players came to the realization that it was kind of just a wall. And a lot of the deck in Knight and Skoos already gave you that option. So you did want to have more creatures with actual effects. Alright, there's Jude. And I mean, look, this is turn 6, I'm at 20 life, so I get to be pretty aggressive with this Sylvan Library as well, which is nice. So we have access to 5 mana, thanks to Scrib Ranger. So I could just play the Batterskull. Doesn't play around Days. I don't mind keeping the other Ranger. But it's not as great without the land drops. Have a quick look. Put on top but pay for this. One, two, three. Untap this, return this. Four. I don't mind just going for my own knight here, but Qasali Pride Mage does give me some outs. I'm just trying to think what I need the Pride Mage for. It's really if they have sort of Feast and Famine and Jide on the click, which means I can't block with the Scrib Ranger. So I think I'm happy just to get the Knight because it gives me access to Karakas as well. I'm just going to pass here. I don't really want to attack with the Scrib Ranger, especially just having the one forest at the moment. Really looking for my own Stoneforge Mystic. That's the big card. Put on top. Put on top. Play a fetch land. I can just go for Cradle here, which is pretty huge. Pretty happy now to go for Qasali Pride Mage. And just pass back. I'm probably okay with showing the second Scrib Ranger. They're going to target themselves anyway. Menriki Gusari. Interesting. I guess because I can return the Batterskull, they don't really want to do anything there. Feels like Jace. Okay. Jace is going to be pretty strong, but I do get to put the Batterskull hopefully onto the Scrib Ranger. But they did tap the Wasteland, so they have to use the Knight to find the Wasteland for the Cradle. Yeah, it's just a tough one for Cal there, especially with the double Mum. And the Pro Blue with Script Ranger kind of acts like an extra Mum as well. The ability to be able to untap Mum in response to any removal is pretty much a 2-mana counterspell. So, yeah. I thought the matchup would be pretty tough, but now looking at Mother of Runes, I think that's the massive reason why I was favored in those games. And obviously something like Script Ranger as well is just perfect against Click to really shore up that aerial push. So pretty happy with how the deck went. I think if anything, I'm unhappy with how I've sideboarded, because it looks like for a deck like that, I don't actually need to bring in that much. I just need to make sure that I do have answers for Jide, and make sure that I can maybe get through some of their defenses to kill a Jace, which Mum allows me to do. And obviously the Qasali Prime Mages are great against Jide, so yeah, pretty happy with that. Looking forward to the next one. If you like this content, subscribe. Nice. I'll be back soon, hopefully with match 7. But until then, enjoy your weekends. Yeah, see you soon.